That's how you start the episode? You're not going to show Percy's conversation with the Nereid? Well, that's lame. That's basically another whole chapter cut.
They're looking at us.
Grover and Annabeth actually did a pretty good job staying hidden from the crowd in the book. In the book, this happened far earlier, back when Percy was taking the bus home with Grover. This is kind of a big change, since Percy seeing them snip that thread is not only meant to foreshadow a death in his future, but also bookend the entire series. We're halfway through the first season, it's a little late to put a bookend on it now. Also, the sound of the thread being cut is supposed to be loud enough to hear across 4 lanes of traffic, but I don't hear any audio effects to indicate that. Percy reunited with Grover and Annabeth back by the Arch. He made his way out of the river and up to the police cordon, where they eventually found him. Also, why is Percy so soaked? One of his abilities as a son of Poseidon is that he never gets wet unless he chooses to.
I knew you'd never agree, and there wasn't enough time. So?
Grover and Annabeth kind of have their roles reversed here. In the book, Grover was the one who tackled Percy with a hug, while Annabeth kept her distance and pretended to be mad.
We need to go to Santa Monica. My father's gonna meet me there.
The Nereid did not tell Percy that Poseidon would meet him when he got to Santa Monica, nor did Percy seem to be under the impression that he would. This is basically just set up for some extra angst material later.
The cops are after us?
Yeah.
Isn't that gonna make it hard for us to get on a train? Hey guys.
As I mentioned in the last video, the Amtrak train was right there waiting for them after the battle with Echidna, so they were able to get back on with no issue. The only reason they didn't make it to LA was because they could only afford tickets to Denver.
I mean, we don't even know who actually stole the thing. Or why. Or how deep this goes. I'm saying, we're not just trying to retrieve a thing. I think we might need to be detectives here too.
Percy did try to play detective in the book, but for different reasons. Between the fact that the Furies kept asking about an object, and the fact that the voice in the pit was trying to barter with him for the bolt, Percy was starting to wonder if they might have been wrong about who took the bolt.
Back at the Arch, I saw the 3 fates, and I saw Atropus cut a piece of thread.
When you see a string cut,
It means one of us is going to die.
Okay, guys, we need to talk about this whole fate thing.
Percy never seemed to have any trouble believing in the power of the fates.
Need some help?
no, we're good.
You sure? Because you guys are so behind schedule.
Ares.
Listen, dummies, I'm hungry. There's a halfway decent diner up the road. If you want my help, you'll meet me there, but don't dawdle.
This is not how the trio met Ares. They'd already stopped at the diner hoping to scam for some food, when Ares showed up and offered to buy some for them. I don't see any flame decals, shotgun mounts, or bright red headlight on Ares' motorcycle. Also, Ares is supposed to have nuclear fireballs where his eyes would be. Aw, the food's already on the table. Does that mean we don't get to see Ares threatening a waitress to accept his gold drachmas? I guess that might have been a little violent, but that was kind of a great evil moment for him.
Give me a second, I'm just starting to fight on Twitter here.
Okay, this is some grade A Riordanverse humor.
Percy was always troubled.
I don't see any sign of Sugar, Gabe's grief counselor, anywhere in that news footage. This show seems to have a hard time committing to actually showing Gabe as the slime ball he's supposed to be.
Doesn't matter. Whether the bolt's retrieved or not, Zeus is going to war with Poseidon.
This idea is entirely original to the show. The reason Ares gave for considering the bolt quest hopeless in the book was simply that if he couldn't find it, nobody could. Also, this is the part where Ares should be explaining that he was the one who suggested Hades might have taken the bolt. After all, framing somebody to start a war is the oldest trick in the book.
See, years before I was born, my grandpa Kronos ate my aunts and uncles. Yeah. Then my dad made him puke them back up, then chopped him into 1,000,000 pieces and chucked him into a bottomless pit, so that kind of set the tone right out of the gate.
As I said back when I covered episode 1, the backstory of the Titan War was supposed to be revealed during the museum tour. I still don't get why they moved it here instead, considering that it leaves the museum tour lacking in any actual educational content.
You get me my shield back, and I'll get you to the underworld by lunch tomorrow with a plan to invade Hades' palace.
Ares didn't offer a plan to invade Hades' palace in the book. He offered Percy information about his mother, which ended up being that she was alive. But I guess we already blew that load, didn't we?
One catch. I really do need that shield back, so I'm gonna keep the satyr here as collateral so you don't run off.
What? No.
Okay.
This did not happen in the book. Grover went with Percy and Annabeth to Waterland. The subplot that this leads to is entirely original to the show. Huh. I always thought the park was called Watt R-A-D. That's what the sign said in the book, after all. Also, I don't see any chains or barbed wire to keep anybody out.
I haven't seen a lot of horror movies, but this seems like exactly the kind of place they suggest to avoid.
I never seen any kind of movie.
Never? Well, if neither of us is dead in a few days, we really ought to fix that.
This is never said in the books. In fact, just 1 year later in The Sea of Monsters, Annabeth is familiar enough with the Jason and the Argonauts film to scoff at it when Percy brings it up. I'm guessing this is a nod to the Battle of the Labyrinth, where Percy and Annabeth plan to go to a movie together as their first date. The trio did not go through the front gate. As I said, it was chained up. Instead, Percy and Annabeth had to climb over the fence, holding down the barbed wire for each other, while Grover just used the winged shoes to fly over.
Wait, Percy, stop!
The trio encountered no traps at Waterland until they reached the Tunnel of Love. As far as they were aware, it was just an ordinary abandoned water park. Because of this, when they ultimately did trigger the booby trap on Ares' shield, it took them completely by surprise.
In the mechanism there, that's celestial bronze.
Oh, fascinating. Annabeth, what is happening right now?
Celestial bronze is what your sword is made of. If you're a human, it'll pass right through you. If you're a monster, or demigod.
All of this was established when Chiron gave Riptide to Percy on Half-Blood Hill. And it's kind of important information for Percy to know before going out into the real world, so I don't understand why he wasn't told this until now. Why not just explain it in that scene in episode 2 where they talk about her other abilities?
A god built this.
What kind of god builds amusement parks?
Hephaestus.
This is not how the trio figured out Hephaestus was involved in the Waterland trap. In fact, they didn't realize it at all until it was too late. The only clue they had was seeing Ada marks on different parts of the Thrill Ride of Love, which even Annabeth didn't pick up on until they'd already sprung the trap. Also, there is no indication that Hephaestus built the entire Waterland park. He did build the Thrill Ride of Love as a trap for Ares and Aphrodite, but by all appearances, the rest of the park was already there.
We've met before. We met at the solstice. On Olympus?
Protester.
Oh, I wasn't one of the protesters. I'm a fan. Nature is brutal. Red in tooth and claw, right?
So what are you, like a casual World War II buff? You've seen Saving Private Ryan, have you?
I prefer the Turbot War. The Lobster War? The 335 Years War. Your deep cuts.
As clever as all this is, it's not in the book. Grover was just as freaked out to see Ares as everybody else. Even if he's lying here, Grover is a terrible liar in the books, so it's still a sin. Hey, set designers, you know that Waterland is a water park, right? Like, it's in the name? 'Cause this looks more like a regular amusement park. Also, there's supposed to be a moment where they loot the Waterland gift shop for new clothes and gear, which never happens in this episode.
Ares has always had a thing with
Aphrodite. She's Hephaestus' wife.
Percy did not know about Ares' affair with Aphrodite. In fact, when he saw how run down Waterland was, he assumed Ares' date must have been some kind of ugly monster, like Echidna.
This must be where Ares and Aphrodite got caught.
Ares actually told them to look in the Tunnel of Love for his shield. Even if it hadn't been so obvious, they wouldn't have needed to figure it out for themselves. Also, way to make the Thrill Ride of Love look underwhelming. In the book, the starting pool was 50 yards across and surrounded by Cupid statues with mirrors all around the edges. And the boat is supposed to be pink and white, with a canopy and hearts all over it.
The shield must be in there. We just gotta go get it.
Sure. Let's go check out the scary ghost ride.
In the book, it was Annabeth who refused to go into the Tunnel of Love because she was that embarrassed to be seen in it with Percy. In the book, the trap was in the starting area of the ride. In fact, the tunnel section didn't seem to be part of the plan at all, considering that the ride was drained of water, and Percy had to use his powers to get it going. This leads to them being launched through the tunnel like a rocket.
What is love?
There is no mention of any music playing in the Thrill Ride of Love.
It's Hephaestus' story.
These holographic images of Hephaestus' life were not in the book, only cliché Valentine's Day artworks.
There it is. Ares' shield.
Yeah, but where's Aphrodite's scarf? That was supposed to have been left behind as well. This actually comes up later in the Titan's Curse, when Percy discovers that Annabeth kept it as a trophy, and doesn't understand why, like the oblivious seaweed brain he is.
Jump!
In the show, we never see where the boats go after the end of the ride, because Percy and Annabeth jump off to grab the shield before it gets to that point. In the book, the ride was supposed to end with the boat going out a pair of golden gates. But because it was decommissioned, the gates were chained shut, meaning Percy and Annabeth would have crashed into it and died if they hadn't jumped off at the right moment. Annabeth and Percy never went into the water in the Thrill Ride of Love. When they jumped out of the boat, they were launched into the air and both needed to be caught by Grover.
But that night, when everyone's kids show up for the winter solstice, and I have to sit through their presentation, that night is the worst night of the year every year by far.
It's actually never said that the winter solstice field trip is an annual event. In fact, we see 2 winter solstices later on, in the Titan's Curse and the Lost Hero, and neither one has another demigod field trip. Also, there's no mention of presentations.
This one in particular, it seems, since one of those kids somehow walked off with the Master Wolf.
In the book, the fact that the lightning theft took place at the winter solstice was revealed at the same time it was revealed the bolt was stolen in the first place. Again, kind of weird that they waited this long to reveal this pretty important detail.
It was a gift, with a hidden purpose. Hephaestus offered it to Hera, but as soon as she sat in it, she couldn't get up.
Why are they referencing the story of Hera and the Golden Throne? In the book, they only talk about the golden net that he used to catch Ares and Aphrodite in bed together since, well, the Thrill Ride of Love is meant to catch Ares and Aphrodite together.
Finally, they said if Hephaestus let Hera free, Aphrodite would be his wife.
While this is accurate to some accounts of the myth, Percy Jackson's Greek Gods establishes that Hera's golden throne and Hephaestus' marriage to Aphrodite were unrelated to each other. The only price Hephaestus demanded for releasing Hera was an apology for tossing him off Olympus.
The chair is the bargain. One of us goes in, the other gets the shield.
Finally, we're getting into the actual trap, and I can talk about how completely wrong all of this is. In the book, the boat itself was booby-trapped. When Percy hit a tripwire, the Cupid statues turned and launched chains across the top of the pool, trapping him and Annabeth inside with a bunch of mechanical spiders. Then their heads turned into cameras that broadcasted live to Olympus. Apparently this change was at least partially because of budgetary and production limitations, but I personally think that the book version makes way more sense, both because it calls back to the Golden Net story, and because it's easy to infer how the shield ended up there. Ares and Aphrodite went to Waterland to go on the Thrill Ride of Love together, thinking Hephaestus would never catch them there. But then they saw Hephaestus' hallmark on the boat and realized it was booby-trapped and rushed out of there, only to forget their stuff in a hurry. Here, I'm supposed to believe that Ares and Aphrodite went to Waterland, saw a booby trap literally right out the gate, then went on the Thrill Ride of Love anyway. And somehow, that ended up with Ares' shield getting put in this trap. I hope that if they ever do a Demigod Files series, they do an episode explaining how all this happened.
I'll do it.
What? Wait a minute.
Whoever goes in isn't coming out. That seems pretty clear.
I know, that's why I said wait.
This isn't the arch seaweed brain.
Hey, we finally got a seaweed brain, and it only took 3 episodes. You know, in the book, she called him that pretty much from the moment he was claimed as a son of Poseidon?
You're not pushing me into the stairwell again.
Yes, I am.
I'm not gonna let you this time. It doesn't work that way.
It's why you're here.
There was never a dilemma like this in the book, or any of the books. Everything that happens here is entirely made up for the show. Hephaestus, what are you doing here? As much as I enjoy seeing my godly parent on the screen, he didn't appear in the books until the Titan's Curse, and doesn't actually play a part in the story until the Battle of the Labyrinth. Also, this guy looks almost nothing like Hephaestus. He looks way too well put together, and doesn't have any of the deformities he's supposed to have. That said, I will knock a sin off for the fact that he is played by a disabled actor, stroke survivor Timothy Omenson.
As it should be.
It isn't how it should be. Eat or be eaten. Power and glory and nothing else matters. Ares is that way. Zeus is that way. My mother is that way. He isn't that way. Maybe I was that way once. But I don't want to be that way anymore.
This is not what Annabeth's character arc in The Lightning Thief was about. Her arc was learning that her mother's feelings towards Percy's father shouldn't dictate her own feelings towards him.
Get in. Don't. I really don't care, but in a few hours, this thing is going to be at the Lotus Casino in Vegas.
Wait, you're actively sending them to the Lotus Casino? In the book, the zoo transport truck was bound for Los Angeles. Vegas was just a pit stop gone wrong, and the trio stumbled into the Lotus Casino by sheer happenstance. Even with the reveal later on, we know you genuinely want Percy to make it to the underworld. Why would you send them to such a hazardous place?
Hermes hangs out there. You play your cards right, and his personal driver can get you to LA in minutes.
Ah, because you want to add more new shit. Hermes doesn't hang out in the Lotus Casino, or anywhere else. He's one of the busiest gods. When he does talk to Percy in the books, he can barely afford to spare a couple minutes. I guess a casino fits his divine domain, but it's not like he has time to sit and gamble all day long.
He was holding something back.
How do you know?
Because I think I got it out of him. I know who stole the Master Bolt.
This plot point was not in the book. The identity of the hero that stole the bolt was never really given much thought. The trio were mostly just focused on finding it. Gonna be honest, I don't really have much bad to say about this one, at least on its own. Grover's subplot with Ares, while completely made up for the show, was quite engaging, and builds up to an interesting cliffhanger. And the scene between Annabeth and Hephaestus does a really good job showing Leia's acting ability. My only real issue is the change to Waterland. I think using the Golden Throne instead of the trap from the book distracts from the whole Ares and Aphrodite thing, and robs us of a potentially thrilling action sequence. But at the same time, this episode kind of emphasizes a broader issue I have with the show, and that's the way it portrays the gods and the kids' relationship with them. We already got a glimpse of this in the previous episode with Athena, but the show in general plays up a lot of the more negative aspects of the gods. While this is in line with the books as a whole, I think it's a little out of place in a Lightning Thief adaptation. While Percy isn't a fan of the gods to begin with, him learning to see their faults and understand the other side of the Titan War is something of a long-running character arc for him across all 5 books. This version of Percy doesn't feel like he needs to learn any of that because he already knows it. Which makes me question what sort of long-running arc they'll do for him instead. Still, I would definitely rate this as the best episode of the season thus far. Unfortunately, it's pretty much downhill from here. This used to be a fun house, but now it's full of evil clowns. It's time to start the countdown. I'm gonna burn it down, down, down. I'm gonna burn it down.